This event this year is an expression of the Soul of Houston series by our conference partner, the Jung Center. The director of the center is Dr. Sean Fitzpatrick. Besides his master's degrees in religious studies and clinical psychology, Sean also earned his doctorate in psychology through Saybrook University's program in Jungian Studies. He's a psychotherapist in private practice. He's been an instructor at the Jung Center since 2001. He lectures both locally and internationally on a range of contemporary social and psychological issues. And ladies and gentlemen, I am very honored to introduce to you Dr. Sean Fitzpatrick.
Oh, Cecilia. Funny. This coat right here is a very important part of the story. Cecilia needs to be here for a second before you take off. So Cecilia and her lovely husband, who may be around the corner, I don't know if he is, Charles, gave me this jacket. Walking around in the neighborhood here, we got a resale shop over by Natachi's, the Continental Club. We saw this, and I put it on, and they decided it was something I really needed to have, so they snuck back and grabbed it and bought it. And the thing about Cecilia is that then, after giving me the gift of this jacket, she felt licensed to demand that I wear it today. And for all of the volunteers who are not represented in the room, who are out making sure that this happened, there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that went into organizing this. And I expect that every last one of them had some variant of that conversation with Cecilia at some point. It is fantastic, too, for me, deeply meaningful that Cecilia was the first face that you saw today. This has been a labor of love on her part for 12 months. It would not have happened without, really, and the hundreds and hundreds of hours I referenced were mainly Cecilia's. So please. Now back to your regularly scheduled white dudes. As Cecilia mentioned, we have had a series of events at the Jung Center. For those of you who don't know about us, we offer continuing education for the human spirit. We're down in the Museum District. And we've for about the last 8 years, we've offered a series of events called the Soul of Houston. And it really focused on this basic question: can a city have a soul? Does Houston have a soul? We're 6 million immigrants, and seriously, we are all immigrants. How can this patchwork of communities have a soul? So my closest encounter with the Soul of Houston happened about 20 years ago. I was a University of Houston student with a new girlfriend. She had wheels, and I did not. So she drove us to 3101 Collingsworth. Was that Roger? Okay, yeah. Roger knows what's at 3101 Collingsworth. Does anybody else know what's at 3101 Collingsworth? Yeah, Continental Zydeco Ballroom. That's exactly right. So this is in the Kashmir Gardens area. It's about a block east of 59, a little bit south of 610. We pulled into this gravel parking lot and got out. And as we were walking up toward this ramshackle building, which is the Continental, a young African-American man came up to us and just very quietly said, he said, "Don't worry, your car's going to be safe." And for me, it was good to hear, and also a little shaming. Like, why would I need you to tell me that? And it was, of course, this white privileged face told him everything. I did need to know that it was going to be safe. So Doris McClendon, who owned the Continental Zydeco Ballroom, welcomed us into the door. She was there at the door. The cover was for a college student, it was $5, which is something, but really not nearly as much as it should have been. They served us free red beans and rice when we walked in the door. Actually, it was before we walked in the door. They had a big pot of red beans and rice that we could take bowls of and walk in with. And they sold setups at the bar so we could get, and we brought a bottle of Southern Comfort with us, college students. And So I was wearing this painfully new pair of cowboy boots, which actually these are those boots 2 decades later. And we sat down at tables and just watched. This was a completely new environment for me. And The band was just ripping, and I'm so sorry I missed the performance last night, because I think for those of you who hadn't encountered Zydeco before, I'm sure you got a sense of kind of what I had going into this place. It was lit. This might be a little romantic. My memory is it was lit literally by bare bulbs, so it was really dark. And the vocal PA was blitzed out. We couldn't really understand what the lyrics were. And there were couples on the dance floor. There were black couples and white couples. And I had never seen black people wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots and overalls. The couples they were somehow, I'd never seen people dance like that either. They were somehow inside the rhythm, you know? For those of you who've seen Zydeco dancing, there's nothing like it. There was somehow, you know, it was precise, but it was totally free and loose at the same time. So my girlfriend finally coaxed me out onto the dance floor, and we sweated out 7-Up and Southern Comfort for hours. My plan had been to leave Houston for Colorado as soon as I graduated, but I stayed here, and I married that girl, and now we have a Houstonian son who I didn't expect to be here, but they're sitting up there at the top. He's going to wave at you. There you go. Doris McClendon was the soul of Houston. That beautiful, nourishing, hot night was the soul of Houston. And because of it, my soul is here in Houston now, too. The best show I ever saw in Houston was in March 2004 at the Rhythm Room. Does everybody remember the Rhythm Room? This tiny little club, a few of you have, this tiny little club on Washington Avenue that's not with us anymore. How about Chris Whitley? Does anybody know the name Chris Whitley? A few of you do. Native Houstonian. He was born here in Houston. He died here, too. He played ferocious blues on a National Steel resonator guitar. And his boot, he had rigged a microphone under a board so that he could stomp out the beat as he played, and he stomped. He was this wiry white guy who, like so many white guys before him, appropriated the Delta blues from the black musicians who created it and made a better living at it, at least for periods of time, than they did. But Chris didn't simply imitate. His blues were filtered through Thelonious Monk and Lou Reed, craft work of all things, really seriously craft work, through Houston, Albuquerque, Brussels, and New York. He was strange and intense. Sometimes he was alienating, and every performance I saw of his was completely arresting. Chris was an unlikely collision of cultures and sensibilities that transcended every last one of them. The soul of Houston in one man, one guitar, one monster boot. The worst show I ever saw in Houston was about a year later in the same room. Chris came out 2 hours late. He played one song there were about 12 of us there. He played one song, and then he sat down on the edge of the stage and he just tuned for 10 minutes. And then he got up and he mumbled something into the mic, probably an apology. I couldn't understand it. And he walked off. He was clearly in trouble. I sent a note to his label the next day because I was worried about him. I just said, look, you know, if you're not out on the road with him, you need to know what's going on. And to my surprise, his girlfriend wrote me back and said that his mother had died right before he headed out on tour. And he was so strapped that he couldn't cancel the tour and grieve. He just had to go out. What I didn't know then was that he was also dying of lung cancer. I'm not sure Chris knew it. I got to see him at Cactus Records a little while later. A couple months later, he did a record release party, and I got to meet him for the first time and shake his hand and thank him. And he was gone 6 months later. He was the soul of Houston. Unspeakable pain and grief and loss hiding in plain sight. What is soul? In the educational programs that we do at the Jung Center, we really work to reclaim this word. You may not know that our word psychology, the English word psychology, comes from two Greek roots, psyche and logos. And the best way to translate psyche into English is our word soul. So I'm a psychotherapist. Psychologists really don't usually talk about soul because we're afraid it's going to tangle us up in religion. But when we instead talk about brain and mind, cognition and behavior and emotion, we miss a sense of the whole of the human experience. And the parts of the whole that we miss often can't make it into words, either because we can't see them, because they aren't measurable, or we don't want to see them because they frighten us or embarrass us, or that their essence flat escapes language. We have a word for this. It's ineffable, right? It's unspeakable. Soul is the ineffable whole. Houston's music expresses that ineffable more of this city, this ineffable whole. We have to breathe our soul. We have to sing it. We have to dance it. We have to play it. We have to sweat it. But we do need the words and the stories that we're going to hear today, as Cecilia so eloquently argued for. We need these stories. The psychiatrist C.G. Jung, who's the namesake of the Jung Center, once wrote that without history, there can be no psychology. And he didn't mean that without our past, we can't have psychology. He means without the writing down of our cultural stories. The work of the historian is to reclaim soul lost to time and to the blindness that protects the privileged. Doris McClendon welcomed everyone to the Zydeco Ballroom, no matter how out of place we felt or looked, no matter how privileged or ignored. We all dance together in Houston. We all sweat together here. Thank you very much.